Hi Chris, Dylan Coons here, and I'm going to be doing a combination video assignment here. I guess would be a video essay of assignments 2 and 4 coupled together. So first and foremost, I'm going to be talking about my trend, which is flipping the class, and I'll be parlaying it into an article that I found and read over and kind of giving the details about the article, which is also about flipping the class. That it's a scholarly article, etc. Meets all the criteria for the assignment. So without further ado, here we go. So flipping the class is perceived to be a lot of work on the instructor's part, but you can start off slow. Okay, instead of having students read textbooks and then doing traditional lecture based on the textbook, instructors take the time to create multimedia like videos, etc., that are very user-friendly to the students. The rhythm of the class is arranged so the students are learning and practicing new concepts prior to having ever discussed them in the class. This allows for better use of class time and a higher level of student engagement. It opens the door to utilizing some of the cognitive science concepts that we've discussed throughout PIDP 3100, for example, the challenge point and the generation effect. So how that works is, at the challenge point, I can ask an open-ended question to the students, and when they're searching their minds to generate the answer, the generation effect is also taking place. So those are two of the examples in the book that you could have done as a trend, or a cognitive science rather, in the education field. So when students are doing that, they're reflecting on their own experience, and that is in the affective domain, I think. And so basically that makes the students are having to adapt their knowledge and their skills and attitudes in class because they are actually reflecting on the emotional connection that they have with that information. Okay, second guiding question for the trend assignment is, what's changing with the trend? What's new and what's going on? So flipping the class is gaining popularity due to its success rate. More material can be covered and students' attitudes are more positive, which leads to better grades. I think it's also a big part because they can work in groups and it's a lot more interactive. I think that just with the way that society is going with social media and interaction, I think this has a part in that. Okay, there is an increasingly more material available online. So as more instructors flip their classes, there's more and more material for that subject matter available. As an instructor, it's not always necessary to reinvent the wheel. Okay, I have successfully flipped my classrooms since I've been an instructor, and I honestly haven't developed any resources online. Okay, but I do look at them and I give them a suggested list of videos that they might want to watch. Okay, might be online learning tools that accompany textbooks or videos already created. D2L or Brightspace comes to mind for me because in the piping section at SAIT we have a whole D2L group of materials already developed, and I encourage the students to go on and use those tools in conjunction with my having flipped the class, because there's checks and balances on those tools that basically give them instant gratification and a formative assessment basically that tells them, yes, you've done it correctly. So then their confidence goes up while they're doing it. So it is very useful, D2L. Okay, what does this mean in terms of my expanding role and responsibilities beyond being a content expert? Okay, in my opinion, and this is an opinionated essay, okay, I don't really view myself as a content expert. I know that that's part of my job title at SAIT, but I think I've proven that you don't need to be an expert in order to actually be an effective instructor. Okay, so beyond being an expert in the content that I'm delivering, I need to enhance my multimedia skills. That's something that I'm going to have to expand in my role as an instructor in the flipped classroom. I need to research new software and technology on how to create videos and infographics, etc., just so I can stay at the forefront of the multimedia thing. I don't want to be a dinosaur and get left behind. I'm too young for that still. Okay, so and that's a big part of how I'm going to adapt. So that was really the next guiding question for this. Okay, I'm going to stay current and I'm going to hold myself accountable to make sure that I don't get left behind in the multimedia world. Okay, what professional development might I need to consider for my teaching? I'm doing it right now. Okay, I do the PIDP suite of courses. The next course I'll be taking is the multimedia one, and I'm really hoping to take a lot from that. So that is a big part of how the trend that I'm speaking about as flipped class and the cognitive science of co-learning and generation effect and the challenge point, all those cognitive sciences, okay, how those play into what I need to consider for teaching. Okay, now on to my article. I chose an article called Flipping Advice for Beginners, What I Learned Flipping Undergraduate Mathematics and Statistics Classes, written by Craig McBride of the Department of Sciences and Mathematics at the School of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences of the University of Washington in Tacoma. Okay, I chose this article for a couple of reasons. It was only 10 pages long, and it described exactly what I wanted to hope to. Basically, it fed into my theory. All right, so I agreed with a lot of what was in there, so I found it, to be honest, simpler to identify with it and discuss it. Okay, so the paper itself contains a description of McBride's experiences flipping undergraduate mathematics and statistics courses for the first time, and some advice for any fellow novice classroom flippers. This paper discusses ways to start small and build up to a completely flipped class over the span of a few terms, with the advice on what technology to use, including software and hardware. Okay, now the guiding questions for assignment 2 were that I meant to describe the article, okay, and describe the principle and what it means for how people acquire new knowledge, skills, or attitudes. Okay. McBride discusses the difference between a traditional classroom where students are lectured by the instructor and do textbook reading and assignments outside of the class, and flipped learning, where students learn most of the course content outside of the class, and homework and group work in the classroom. Classroom time in the flipped setting is freed up for hands-on work, and teachers can personalize their instruction to the students. This benefits advanced and less advanced learners alike. Okay, for the instructor, McBride explains that it can be more work up front. However, the resulting attitudes and achievements of the students is mind-blowing, to quote McBride. Okay, McBride was teaching very dry subjects, in my opinion, okay, calculus, math, and statistics, okay, with the traditional classroom setting, i.e. the podium, the desk, the whiteboard, etc. Okay, he wanted to breathe new life into the subject matter. While lecturing, he found students frantically trying to take notes or zoning out, so he decided to try to flip the class using PowerPoint slides and some online materials that he enhanced. Okay, so he found videos online and he enhanced them, made them his own. All right, he used videos that were already online instead of trying to make his own, and the students could review these materials outside of the classroom and come to class with specific questions. He used mini lectures if need be. He would start class with a 5-minute question probing session, ensuring that they understood the major concepts. Then he did a few examples for them and then have them work in groups. All right? That is the general idea of the flipped class right there. Okay? Being invigorated by this new style, students picked up on his energy. It was going very well for him, so he introduced another tool, being an online lab where students could practice questions online with multimedia tools built in. Some, but few students chose not to use the tool, so McBride had two controlled monitor the tool's success. All right, so we had a group of students that bought into using the online tools, and then a group of students that said no, they still wanted to use the textbook. Okay, he could then monitor the performance and attitudes of the students who used it and those who did not, and evaluate if he'd continue to use it in the future. Okay. At that point, McBride moved to a different university and realized the flipped classroom was the perfect option for his new statistics class, where otherwise he would have to lecture for 4 hours straight. He purchased recording software, etc., much like Screencast-O-Matic, okay? And he also used other videos online and created a Google Doc, okay? The Google Doc became, I think, the central part of what McBride accomplished, because he gave it out like a course syllabus, basically, but it was digital and it had hyperlinks on it. So he created his own videos, and then he made a syllabus with his videos as hyperlinks on there and said, on this night you need to watch this video and then do this assignment. So when the students came to class, they were well prepared. Okay, and it was the Google document that I think tied it all together for them. Okay, so the students were expected to do some reading and watch at least one video prior to each class. Then he'd do a mini lecture and conduct the concept check. So he developed these things called concept checks, which was basically a formative assessment that once the students came in, he would give them a one question, open-ended question on a page of paper, and they would have, and that was the concept check. They would do it on their own and come up individual, and he would read through the answer, and he could actually gauge individually, student by student, whether or not they actually got the concept, which is a pretty quick and simple way from the instructor's perspective to gauge whether or not the video that you gave them is actually working, or whether the students even watched the video. Okay? And then they get instant feedback, which we know students love. So basically, he was dealing with diverse levels of adult learners, and some couldn't even add fractions, and some were already ready for full calculus. Okay? His experience with flipping the classroom allowed for more personalized learning. He could spend more time with each student, and he would use the Google Doc I discussed, so students knew what to watch before class and which material they would be tested on, etc. Okay? He's now evaluating how well his students are doing with this format versus students who took the same courses in a traditional setting. So he's doing a little bit of a scientific comparison. Okay? Students' evaluations also proved that the flipped classroom was preferred. All right? Students even began to ask McBride's colleagues to flip their classes as well. The final result was better grades, better attitudes, and more material being successfully covered. Students even have discussion boards he built into the online tools where they can contribute material to the course. McBride's advice is not to reinvent the wheel and slowly building your materials based on the subject matter you're teaching, not on specific textbooks you're meant to be using in the classes you're teaching. This way, the material you are collecting and creating will be relevant to the course regardless of changes in the textbooks. He advises that you ensure attendance and quizzes occur so that students are treating the course like an online course, or not like an online course, and are actually coming to class and getting engaged in the discussions. Okay, awesome. I'm just doing my assignment. Sorry for the interruption, Chris. I'm just making a video of myself, Liz. So can you guys give me 3 more minutes? Okay, thanks, buddy. Okay, the next guiding question was to describe the principle and what it means. What this means for how people acquire new knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So what flipping the classroom allows is for students who struggle with the material can come to class ready to understand and advance at their own level by engaging their classmates. It allows students to reinforce their understanding through discussion with their peers rather than the podium style instruction. Okay? It gave the students who had really good understanding of the material the opportunity to help the others understand, but also to go beyond the textbook. We know that people reinforce what they've just learned when they're helping other students learn it. So in teaching, you're reinforcing what you've learned. And so this creates an opportunity for those students to do that. McBride really stresses that the attributes of the students were improved immensely when given the opportunity to engage with others instead of sitting at their desks and frantically trying to take notes, or eventually even kind of zoning out, as he put it, and not listening to the structure at all. The instructor's lecture, excuse me. Okay, now describe the applicability of the principle at my practice. Give examples of how to apply the theory to improve learning in my class. Okay, that's what the guiding question I'm answering now. Examples should be based on specific content or skills that I teach or plan to teach, and my description should be detailed enough that another instructor could develop the activity based on my description. If possible, include examples of material I might use. So a flashcard set or a game. Okay, now being that I have already successfully flipped my first year math class that I teach to the steam fitting apprentices. So it's a basics math and science class. It's 5 hours per week, so 2 2-hour classes and 1 1-hour class. Depending on how the schedule works out, does play a large factor into how I get into my rhythm as far as getting them to pre-read and do the assignment in advance, then come into class. So I'll get into a little more detail here. So instead of giving my class the typical lecture and the take-home homework assignments and then a quiz to follow in the following class, I would have repeated this: lecture, homework, quiz. That's the standard layout of instruction, right? Lecture, homework, quiz. Lecture, homework, quiz. Disengaging, wasn't interested in teaching it that way, okay? And honestly, it was self-serving. I found that it was hard for me to lecture on math if the students didn't have questions. So I decided to give them assignment before the lecture, then they had questions, and then it saved me having to do a lecture. I just answered the questions, okay? In the first class of the course, I review all the prerequisites for the entire course. This serves two things: make sure that the students understand everything they need to know before they can even dig into the coursework, and it also buys me 2 hours of time in class, so then I can effectively give them an assignment to go home and do without having the lecture happen first. So at the end of the first class, I give them the first assignment on new course material that I haven't covered yet. Okay, I send them home with that assignment for the next class's subject matter. They're expected to review the course content from the textbook and online videos that I have outlined for them. I've taken from McBride's article that it would be wise to begin creating a Google document with the hyperlinks for this multimedia content, which is something I'll have to look into. That's part of my professional development that I already spoke about at the start of the video essay. Okay, I encourage them to come back to class with questions on the assignment. We take the beginning half of the class to review the assignment and go over the questions together as a group. By taking everyone's questions in this way, others have the opportunity to explain how they worked out the problems or ask further questions to me or to their peers. Okay, for the second half of class, I go through a mini lecture of the material while going through the textbook to ensure we haven't missed any points. Okay, because the students are eventually tested from a government exam and the tests are based on the objectives laid out in the exams, I am obligated to cover off all the material in the textbook. So if those questions don't come up when we're reviewing the assignment, that 1 hour or 45 to 50 minutes of basically unstructured lecture is me going through the book to make sure that everything is covered off. I need to do that to make sure that the students succeed ultimately on their government exam. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed my video essay, Chris. It's now the hard part will be for me is getting the multimedia portion dialed in so I can make sure that I get this posted on the internet and you can watch it. Thanks. Bye.